Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the AEW Dynamite review. Dynamite tonight was from the Entertainment and Sports Arena in Washington, D.C. And this was the 3-year anniversary show for AEW Dynamite. Can't believe it's been 3 years of AEW Dynamite. But this show tonight was a very good show. Really enjoyed it. And they delivered. The show delivered, as always. But I got some news before I start off the review of this confrontation between Andrade and Sammy Guevara. But tonight on Dynamite, for its 3-year anniversary show, we saw MJF in action. MJF in the ring again after he had his last match in 129 days. And he ended up taking on Willow Yuta. Darby Allin was in action and he ended up taking on Jay Lethal. The TNT Championship was on the line where Warlow defended the title against Bryan Cage. We had a 3-way women's match. Toni Storm, Athena, and Nightingale teamed up to take on Jamie Hayter, Serena Deeb, and Penelope Ford. We saw Hangman and Paige versus Roosh. Luchasaurus was in action, and he ended up taking on Fuego Del Sol, Jobber Del Sol. Do I really need to explain when I get to that match who won it? Obviously, you all know who won it, who won the match. And then the main event, it was Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara versus Bryan Danielson and Daniel Garcia. And also we saw the Acclaimed celebrating National Scissoring Day, which that was a really enjoyable, fun segment when I get to talking about it. But overall, Dynamite for their 3-year anniversary show. This was a very good show tonight. Really enjoyed it. But like I said, before I get into the review, I want to talk about this news with Andrade and Sammy Guevara because they had a altercation, and it all started in a Twitter war. And this guy on Twitter by the name of Micro the Main Man, not Microman, tweeted out saying that Andrade said he had a confrontation with Sammy Guevara after he cried backstage about hitting him too hard. Andrade sold it with words to Guevara, and it didn't amount to anything. And this was tweeted out on Monday. So we had Sammy Guevara end up, replying to that on Monday. And he wrote on Twitter, "You are a jobber, a favor hire. Be grateful, bitch." So that's what Guevara wrote out on Twitter. Of course, talking to Andrade. So Andrade saw that. Andrade tweeted out yesterday, on Tuesday, he kept saying, "I said it to your face. If you had a problem with me and you said nothing, I won't beat your ass because I'm a professional. Don't be scared. When I say something, I name names. And I'm not scared to get fired. Hashtag Sammy." To which Guevara retweeted Andrade's Twitter status. And Guevara ended up replying. He ended up saying, "You didn't say shit to me, you liar. But here's some truth, you ungrateful prick. You would be jobless if it wasn't for your dad-in-law," meaning Ric Flair. So Guevara was like, "Are you really mad at me or mad at yourself for failing to get over for a second time? Just go back to WWE like we all know you want to do and fuck off." So that was what Guevara tweeted out yesterday, replying to Andrade's tweet that he tweeted out. So getting this news on wrestling.com, they posted this today. It says the AEW locker room reacted to the evolving situation between Andrade and Sammy Guevara. According to a Fightful Select report Wednesday evening, several backstage personnel and talent within AEW are frustrated with the Andrade-Sammy Guevara interaction that took place on Twitter yesterday. Multiple sources pushed aside the claim that the whole incident is a work, but also couldn't be certain that this was the case. Issues between the two men first arose after Andrade said in an interview that Guevara had told him that he hit too hard in the ring. To which Guevara, like I said, responded after seemingly called Andrade a favor hire and a jobber. So Andrade fired back, of course. So it says right here, after a summer that saw no shortage of drama and a notorious brawl that went down after All Out, this was, of course, what happened at the post-media scrum of All Out, between Punk and Omega and the Bucks. We all know what happened, during the post-media scrum of All Out, with Punk. So it was previously noted that tensions within the AEW locker room had reportedly settled over previous weeks. However, Fightful wrote that an unnamed top star within the company was frustrated by the way things played out with Andrade and Guevara, as it painted a poor picture of AEW's locker room. Another star said that they saw the situation as disrespectful to the work of Bryan Danielson, Jon Moxley, and Chris Jericho put in to help calm the tensions backstage. And apparently, Andrade was sent home, but they ended up keeping Guevara. They did not send Guevara home tonight. Which, seeing them send Andrade home and keeping Guevara, because Guevara and Jericho teamed up to take on Bryan and Daniel Garcia in the main event, that's just favoritism at its finest there. Send Andrade home, but yet keep Guevara there. If I was Tony Khan, I would have sent both guys home. I would have sent Andrade and Sammy Guevara home. And the match could have been done next week on Dynamite. They could have sent Guevara home, have the tag team match take place next week on Dynamite in Toronto, and there you go. I don't know what the fuck is going on in AEW backstage. This all started because the drama started because of Punk in the post-media scrum of All Out, and the Bucks and Kenny Omega getting suspended, Sammy Guevara running his mouth backstage. This is not the first time that Guevara did this. He did this with Eddie Kingston. Him and Eddie Kingston had an altercation, and then they patched things up, and they still had the match at Rampage Grand Slam, which we saw. So now Guevara is in tensions with Andrade. Guevara just needs to calm down and watch his mouth. So that's my opinion on this Andrade and Guevara altercation. Like I said, both guys should have been sent home. They shouldn't have kept Guevara there. And they could have called off the match and rescheduled it for next week on Dynamite. That's just my opinion. Just Guevara, like I said, he needs to watch what he says and he needs to chill. He's good in the ring. I like Guevara, but come on, man. Just please keep your opinions to yourself. So, just wanted to touch on that, with the Guevara and Andrade altercation. Let's jump right into the review. Dynamite opened up tonight with MJF versus Yuta. MJF, this is the first match that he had in 129 days. Those days were the last time that MJF wrestled, 129 days. MJF came out first, came out to boos from the crowd as he made his way down to the ring. Wheeler Yuta ended up coming out next, and he looked pissed off, and he started talking trash to MJF. We had William Regal on commentary, of course. The crowd was behind Yuta here. They were chanting his name. So MJF ended up avoiding a strike from Yuta, and MJF did the Jeff Jarrett strut. He shrugged to the crowd. Both guys ended up locking up. MJF was in the corner. Yuta came back and delivered some strikes to MJF, and he followed up with a series of arm drags, and MJF had a surprised look on his face, like his eyes bulged out, shocked and surprised of Yuta doing this. Yuta came back, and he delivered a drop kick to MJF, and he delivered a very nice back suplex to MJF. Yuta went up to the top, but MJF ended up rolling to the opposite corner. MJF distracted the referee, and he took advantage of the match. He started delivering some stomps to Yuta, and he ended up flipping Yuta into the corner, started taunting the crowd there in Washington, D.C. So MJF locked in the chin lock on Yuta. The crowd was chanting for Yuta. Yuta ended up flying out of the chin lock. He ended up going for a German suplex. MJF reversed that into a backbreaker domination combo, which was cool. MJF ended up going for the cover. Yuta kicked out. So then as Dynamite came back from the commercial, MJF ended up whipping Yuta into the corner. And Yuta ended up getting out of the corner. MJF ended up going hard into the turnbuckle. So Yuta ended up getting a roll-up, to which MJF ended up kicking out. MJF ended up blocking a German suplex, and Yuta ended up getting sent to the ropes by MJF. He ended up coming back, and he hit the German suplex to MJF. So Yuta ended up going up to the top. MJF ended up rolling to the other corner. MJF blocked a kick from Yuta, and they ended up hitting a second rope axe handle to Yuta's arm. Yuta ended up going for another German suplex, but MJF ended up sending him into the ropes, and he ended up getting hit with a powerbomb backbreaker to, from MJF. So MJF ended up going for the cover, and Yuta ended up kicking out. So MJF was just slapping Yuta around. So we had MJF deliver a thumb to Yuta's eye. Yuta ended up coming back with an enziguri, and he ended up sending MJF into the ropes. And Yuta ended up getting hit with a sunset flip. So both men were trading roll-ups, near fall after near fall after near fall. I hate when they do this. I hate when they do near fall after near fall after near fall after near fall. It just looks ridiculous. They're just rolling around the ring, and the ref is just counting 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. It's so stupid. I hate when they do that. So we had MJF deliver a tombstone, and Yuta end up rolling through. And so Yuta ended up going for the cover. MJF ended up kicking out. MJF delivered a roll-up for a 2 count. So Yuta ended up kicking out at 2. So both men were in the middle of the ring. They were both down. Bryce Remsburg, who was the referee, started the 10 count. He ended up getting to 9. Both men ended up getting up. Yuta avoided a strike from MJF. MJF went up to the top turnbuckle. He had Yuta set up for the Avalanche Tombstone. Yuta then bit MJF. Yuta ended up hitting a crazy hurricanrana to MJF, which looked awesome. He followed up with a tope to the outside. Yuta ended up going back up to the top, and MJF rolled away, and he flipped Yuta off. So we had the crowd chanting, "This is awesome." Yuta ended up hitting the hammer and anvil to MJF, and he ended up going for the seatbelt, but MJF ended up rolling through for the salt of the earth. Yuta ended up crawling to the ropes. MJF ended up cranking Yuta back, and Yuta ended up tapping out. So there you go. MJF ended up winning the match. Post-match, both MJF and Yuta ended up staring each other down. Yuta extended his hand to MJF. MJF was contemplating on shaking Yuta's hand. So out of nowhere, Lee Moriarty ended up attacking Yuta. MJF was pissed off. He ended up telling Moriarty, "I didn't tell you to do that." So Stokely, Hathaway, and Lee Moriarty ended up having Yuta up for MJF. William Regal ended up coming down from the commentary table with brass knucks. William Regal got into the ring with MJF, and he squared up to MJF. Regal ended up squaring up with MJF, and the crowd started chanting, "You fucked up," to William Regal. So MJF ended up talking some trash to William Regal, and he slowly made his way out of the ring. Regal ended up sneering at MJF, and pretty much that was basically that. But overall, this was a very good match from MJF and Wheeler Yuta. Both guys were very entertaining in this match, and it could have gone either way. MJF could have won the match. Yuta could have won it. Given how Yuta has been so good after joining the Blackpool Combat Club. But overall, very good match. And like I said, this was MJF's first match in 129 days. So then we had a promo for Bryan Danielson, Danny Garcia versus Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara. And it ran down, the history of Jericho and Bryan and, Danny Garcia in the battle, with him wanting to be a pro wrestler or sports entertainer, what we've seen, over the months. And then we saw Tony Schiavone. Tony Schiavone was backstage with the Jericho Appreciation Society, and they were basically just shitting on Danny Garcia. To which Matt Menard, Daddy Magic, was just shitting on Danny Garcia. Jericho ended up saying to Danny Garcia, "We taught you everything. I just hope you make the right decision, buddy." And then Jericho turns his attention to Bryan Danielson. He ended up saying, "I am going to desecrate Ring of Honor and beat you in Toronto and leave as the Ring of Honor champion." So that was pretty much what Jericho and Matt Menard had to say. And then we had Jay Lethal versus Darby Allin. This was a good match here. Jay Lethal made his way out. He did not have Sanjay Dutt or Satnam Singh out there. So he just came out by himself. So Darby Allin ended up coming out. He was wearing a hooded brown coat. And so both guys were in the ring. They were circling each other. Both men were exchanging headlocks and hammerlocks. And Jay Lethal ended up sending Darby to the outside. Darby came back, delivering an arm drag to Jay Lethal, and he ended up sweeping Jay Lethal's leg. Both men were down. Darby ended up extending his hand. Jay Lethal then kicked Darby. He ended up sending Darby into the corner. Darby then avoided a strike by Jay Lethal, but Jay Lethal ended up hitting a quick drop kick to Darby's knee, and Jay Lethal started work over Darby's knee with a scissor kick. Darby ended up crumbling when Jay Lethal tried to deliver an Irish whip to him. Jay Lethal ended up going to attack Darby, but Darby came back with a guillotine. Jay Lethal then picked Darby up, and we had Darby Allin end up hitting a Scorpion Death Drop to Jay Lethal. He ended up going for the cover, and Jay Lethal ended up kicking out. And then, as Dynamite came back from the commercial, Jay Lethal was in control of the match. He was working on Darby's leg, and he locked Darby's leg into the corner, started stomping away on it. But Jay Lethal ended up hitting a huge avalanche dragon screw from the top to Darby Allin. And then we had Jay Lethal end up locking in the figure four to Darby. Darby was in the center of the ring. He ended up swiping at Jay Lethal. And at the end of the match, we had Sonjay Dutt and Satnam Singh. They were out on the stage. Jay Lethal ended up telling both Sonjay and Satnam to go to the back because he's got this on his own. So Darby ended up delivering a Hurricanrana to Jay Lethal. He ended up going for the cover. Jay Lethal kicked out at 2. Darby ended up rolling through in the Last Supper. So there you go. Darby Allin ended up winning the match. Post-match, Darby ended up talking to Jay Lethal. Darby ended up offering his hand for Jay Lethal to shake. Jay Lethal then shook Darby's hand, and he walked up the ramp, and Sonjay Dutt and Satnam Singh ended up following Jay Lethal, and Darby ended up celebrating in the ring, and pretty much that was basically that. But from what we saw here, are we getting a babyface Jay Lethal? Maybe. Jay Lethal, he probably doesn't need Sonjay Dutt and Satnam Singh anymore. So this could be a babyface turn here for Jay Lethal after he shook Darby Allin's hand. So we'll see. And then we had a video package showcasing Brian Cage and the Embassy, to which Brian Cage faces Warlow for the TNT Championship. And of course, the Embassy is, of course, Brian Cage and Prince Nana and Khan and Doa Leona. Also, Jonathan Gresham. Well, Jonathan Gresham, he's taken time off. So it's just Prince Nana, Brian Cage, Khan, and Doa Leona. So we had a pretty, decent video package from Brian Cage and the Embassy, showcasing who they are. And then we had the match, Brian Cage versus Warlow, TNT Championship on the line. This was a very good match. This was very entertaining. And this was a TNT Championship match that did not go 3 or 4 minutes long, which I'm actually glad. So Brian Cage made his way out, got a nice ovation from the crowd there in Washington. He was accompanied by Prince Nana. So Warlow ended up making his way out in a very Goldberg entrance manner. So he came out, got a good ovation, and both men sized each other up as the bell rang. Brian Cage ended up striking at Warlow, started firing away with some shoulders in the corner. Warlow ended up chucking Brian Cage into the corner, ended up hitting some shoulders to Brian Cage. So both men were just going back and forth. It was a slugfest between them. Warlow sprung off the ropes and hit a Hurricanrana to Brian Cage, which was nice. Cage ended up tripping up Warlow in the ropes, and Cage was going for his very own 619 like Rey Mysterio, but Warlow caught Cage, and Warlow ended up slamming Cage down to the mat. Warlow ended up going for the powerbomb, but Prince Nana distracted Warlow. So Prince Nana was on the apron. Brian Cage came back, and he ended up pinning a Massive Sky High to Warlow, and he ended up going for the cover. Warlow ended up kicking out. So then as Dynamite came back from the commercial, Brian Cage had Warlow in the corner. Warlow started punching away at Cage. Cage ended up whipping him into the corner, and Warlow ended up hitting a Whisper in the Wind off the top, which was good. Warlow then delivered the belly to Cage, and Warlow headed up to the top rope, and he leapt off the top. Cage caught Warlow. Cage ended up suplexing Warlow from the apron into the ring, which was crazy. So Cage ended up going for the cover, and Warlow ended up kicking out. Very impressive there. So Cage then ended up sending Warlow up for the drill claw. Warlow countered that with a spine buster, a very huge spine buster to Brian Cage. So Warlow ended up going for the cover, and Cage ended up kicking out. Warlow then missed a lariat, and Cage ended up hitting the F5 to Warlow. So Cage ended up going for the cover. Warlow ended up kicking out. Cage had Warlow in a powerbomb position, but Warlow ended up delivering 2 headbutts to Cage and then a lariat. So Warlow ended up taking his straps down. Warlow had Cage up for the powerbomb symphony, and Warlow ended up hitting the powerbomb symphony to Brian Cage. So Warlow ended up going for the cover, and there you go. Warlow ended up winning the match, retaining the TNT Championship. Post-match, the Gates of Agony. This is Khan and Dolioa. They blindsided Warlow, and they started beating Warlow down. Prince Nana also beat it down on Warlow, just stomping away at him. And then out came Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe came out. It was good to see him. You know, he was supposed to be on the show last week, but due to the hurricane down there, you know, a lot of talent couldn't make it up to AEW last week because of that. So Joe ended up delivering some punches, but we had the Gates of Agony, and Prince Nana started beating down on Joe. So the embassy took control of, you know, being down on Joe and Warlow. And then FTR, the top guys, end up coming out. They got a huge pop from the crowd. So Harwood and Wheeler made their way down, and the embassy ended up scurrying out of the ring. Joe, Warlow, and FTR stood tall in the ring, and we had the Gates of Agony, Khan and Dolioa, end up staring down FTR, and that was basically that. But overall, this was a good match for the TNT Championship. A very long TNT Championship match that did not go 3 minutes or 4 minutes, the latest. Warlow was actually given a talent in Brian Cage. Warlow was not defeating jobbers here, which was good. They actually gave him talent. They actually gave him Brian Cage instead of, here's another jobber for Warlow to just squash. This match proves why Warlow should be on Dynamite every week. The TNT Championship needs to be on Dynamite every week. And have Warlow go out there and face talent. Don't keep giving him jobber after jobber after jobber after jobber in squash matches. But Warlow needs to be featured every week. And the TNT Championship needs to be featured every week on the show. And we need to see more of this. The TNT Championship matches go longer than 2, 3, or 4 minutes. We need talent for Warlow, like what we saw with Brian Cage here. They both delivered a very good match. But Warlow needs to be booked like this, what we saw tonight. Not feeding him jobber after jobber after jobber after jobber. But more TNT Championship matches, and they need to go longer, like what we saw here tonight. And as Dynamite came back from the commercial, we saw Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. She cut a promo earlier in the day, and she ended up saying that as the face of AEW, she is morally obligated to announce that Saraya has not been medically cleared. So they did not announce yet that, if Saraya is medically cleared or not to compete. And if she does get medically cleared, I sense her having a schedule like Brock Lesnar. I can sense her having a Brock Lesnar-like schedule, where she can have a match, go off, and then sometime down the line, come back and have another match. She's going to get a Brock Lesnar schedule if they clear her to compete. So Britt Baker was like, oh, let's ship Saraya off again. So she was like, oh, well, that officially makes AEW my house. Yours truly, Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. So that's what the doctor had to say. And then we had the women's trios match. Athena, Willow Nightingale, and Toni Storm versus Jamie Hayter, Serena Deeb, and Penelope Ford. And this was surprisingly a entertaining women's match here. We had Penelope Ford end up coming out first. She was accompanied by her husband, Kip Sabian. And then we had Serena Deeb end up coming out after Penelope Ford. Jamie Hayter then came out. She got a big ovation from the crowd. She actually got a babyface reaction. She was over with the crowd. And Jamie Hayter was accompanied by, of course, Rebel and Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. And then Saraya's music ended up hitting. Saraya was managing Athena, Willow Nightingale, and Toni Storm. Willow Nightingale ended up coming out first. Athena ended up coming out. And then Toni Storm, which she came out to a big pop from the crowd. So it looked like the match was going to start off with Jamie Hayter and Willow Nightingale. But Jamie Hayter ended up tagging in Penelope Ford. Athena ended up tagging in. Both Athena and Penelope Ford were exchanging arm drags and some flips. Athena ended up following up with a drop kick to Penelope Ford. Penelope Ford ended up countering an Irish whip from Athena. And Athena ended up delivering a power slam to Penelope Ford. She ended up going for the cover, and Penelope Ford ended up kicking out. Athena was dragged into the corner after Penelope Ford, poked her, and Serena Deeb ended up tagging in. And the crowd was behind Serena Deeb here. Athena ended up hitting a crossbody to Serena Deeb, and she tagged in Toni Storm. Toni Storm ended up going after Serena Deeb, and she was just clubbing the back of Serena Deeb's neck. Toni Storm ended up whipping Serena Deeb into the corner, and we had Serena Deeb, or Toni Storm, deliver a hip attack to Serena Deeb. Jamie Hayter distracted Toni Storm as Serena Deeb took control of the match. She ended up taking out Toni Storm's knee, and then Dynamite went to commercial. And then as Dynamite came back from the commercial, Serena Deeb was in control of the match. She locked in a chin lock on Toni Storm. Toni Storm ended up rolling out of it, but Serena Deeb ended up catching Toni Storm with a Snapdragon screw. Serena Deeb delivered a suplex to Athena, and then Jamie Hayter ended up delivering a suplex to Willow Nightingale. We had a point in the match where we had Willow Nightingale end up getting on the ropes. She ended up choking Serena Deeb. Rebel was going to use crutches to Will Nightingale, and then Saraya ended up stopping Rebel, and then she ended up chasing off Rebel and Britt Baker on the outside. So Will Nightingale ended up rolling through Serena Deeb with an inside cradle, and then she delivered a slam to Serena Deeb. At the end of the match, we had Will Nightingale end up setting up Penelope Ford for the Dr. Bomb, and she ended up going for the cover. And there you go. Toni Storm, Will Nightingale, and Athena ended up winning the match. Post-match, Britt Baker got into the ring, and she was arguing with Saraya. And they started slugging away at each other. We had a slugfest ensuing in the ring. Saraya ended up sending Britt Baker to the outside, and Rebel was the only one in the ring. Saraya then ended up delivering a super kick to Rebel, and pretty much that was basically that. But Saraya here, her decking Britt Baker, having a slugfest with Britt Baker. I think they were being careful of Saraya here, because when they medically clear Saraya, without a doubt, she'll have a match with Britt Baker, but she's going to have a Brock Lesnar-like schedule where she's not going to be competing all the time. So that's how the way I sense them booking Saraya, if she is medically cleared to compete. But here, I think they were just, trying to be careful with her. So, but overall, this was a very entertaining women's trios match. And then we had Roosh, and he was backstage with Jose and Private Party, Isaiah Cassidy, and Mark Gwen. And it was very weird to see Jose and Roosh without Andrade there. So Jose ended up regarding Private Party and the contract tampering. And they ended up telling Private Party to do the right thing because, Matt Hardy, was with the Private Party. So pretty much that was basically that. Private Party, was tampering with their contract with the AFO. So that was basically that. And then we had the Acclaimed. Max Caster and Anthony Bowens, they made their way out along with Billy Gunn. This was to celebrate National Scissoring Day. And the Acclaimed is so over with the crowd. They got a great response from the crowd there in Washington. I love how they are just so over. So we had them talking about stars, and they hype up, National Scissoring Day. And the crowd was chanting, "Oh, scissor me, daddy." So we had Bowens end up welcoming us to the first ever National Scissoring Day. And he ended up saying that it's brought to you by the most popular team in wrestling, the winningest team, the best damn homegrown team in AEW, the Acclaimed. And he ended up saying that the Scissor Me Daddy shirt is the #1 seller for merch. Of course, it's no surprise that it's the #1 seller. I mean, considering how hot and how over the Acclaimed is. So he ended up saying that AEW now stands for Acclaimed Every Wednesday. And Bowens ended up saying that he is the Sultan of Scissor. He wants to say, while a few people may be new, he's not going to break it down. And he goes through the lore, including it being a sign of a real team, not just a thrown together team, like Sneaky Swerve and Keith Lee. So Bowens ended up going to say that they think they may be popular, but everyone loves the Acclaimed. So Billy Gunn got on the mic. Billy Gunn got a big pop, and he kept saying, "This is Daddy Ass's house." And he kept saying, "And for the millions and millions," that's what the crowd end up chanting, DX reference. So he kept saying that he went to City Hall, and he ended up presenting the Acclaimed with a key to the city. So they opened up the gift that was wrapped in that, and it was giant scissors. There was a golden giant scissor. So Billy Gunn ended up saying to Anthony Bowens, because Anthony Bowens was running with the scissor, he ended up saying, "No running with scissors, please." So Max Caster ended up saying to offer a scissor to your neighbor. He ended up saying that he wants to talk about greatness. He ended up going to say about 30 years ago, when Washington won Super Bowl 17, it was because his dad was on that team. And his Super Bowl ring is his pride and joy. So Max Caster ended up saying that he was going to wear this with pride and bring DC together. And he ended up saying, "Everyone, hold up your scissors." To which everyone in the crowd, there was a section in that crowd where it was a scissor section. Everybody had cutouts of scissors. It was just great. So he kept saying that everyone looks good in pink. And we are the people's choice. We are the people's voice. And we are doing the first bipartisan scissor to bring people together. So then Swerve Strickland ended up interrupting. Swerve ended up coming out. He got on the mic, and he ended up saying that this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. He ended up saying to the Acclaimed, "Congrats on the merch, and congrats on being such good role models." And he ended up saying that those titles should be on Billy, because without him, you wouldn't have won. So Swerve ended up saying that we get back to business next week in Toronto. So then out came Mark Sterling. And this is where the segment got a little too long. So Mark Sterling ended up saying, "Rock beats paper." He ended up saying that paper beats rock. Sterling then made a claim that the Acclaimed need him, and we can join together, and I can represent you against Swerve and seal the deal tonight with a scissor. So they end up attacking Mark Sterling, the Acclaimed. Bowens delivered a scissor leg drop from the top onto Mark Sterling. Billy Gunn then grabbed the mic. He kept saying, "I accept for next week gladly. You can leave now. We have one more thing to do." So then Billy Gunn and the Acclaimed, they all scissored each other. The crowd ended up erupting, and that was how the segment ended. But I loved this whole segment. This was great. It shows how over the Acclaimed is and how popular they are. And they are just that entertaining on the mic. And they're very good in the ring, both Caster and Bowens. But really love this segment. Very good. Very entertaining, and kind of brought the crowd together. And how the crowd ends up loving the Acclaimed. Scissor me daddy. And then, as Dynamite came back from commercial, we had Tony Schiavone interviewing Madison Rayne and Sky Blue. Madison Rayne ended up talking about some upcoming stars, including Sky Blue. And then Anna J.A.S. and Ty Mellow Yellow end up interrupting. Sky Blue ended up saying that they can help with promos, and she could help them with wrestling. So the women end up going back and forth. Madison Rayne end up mocking entertainment. So pretty much that was basically that. It was very cringe. So that was basically that. And they're going to have a match that's set for Rampage on Friday, which Rampage is going to be on Friday. And then after Rampage, it's going to be Battle of the Belts 4. So that's going to be taking place Friday. It's going to be Rampage and Battle of the Belts 4 after Rampage. So, but I won't be reviewing that. I won't be reviewing Rampage or Battle of the Belts 4 or even SmackDown because I'll be at New York Comic Con on Friday. And then we had Roosh versus Hangman and Paige. And this was a very good match here. Of course, Roosh being accompanied by Jose. So Roosh stormed his way down to the ring. Hangman and Paige then end up coming out, got a huge pop from the crowd there. So the match ended up starting. Both guys end up delivering some strikes and chops to each other. Roosh ended up avoiding a clothesline from Paige, and Paige ended up going to the apron. Roosh ended up avoiding Paige. Jose ended up grabbing Hangman's leg, and Roosh ended up delivering an elbow to Paige because of that distraction from Jose. So Roosh was working on the outside, and Roosh picked up a camera cable. He ended up whipping Paige with it. Jose distracted the referee, and so Roosh was now choking Paige with the camera cable. So Roosh ended up sending Paige into the barricade, and then as Dynamite came back from the commercial, Roosh was still in control of the match. He ended up having Paige down the ring. Paige fought back with some punches, and he ended up delivering a fallaway slam to Roosh. Hangman kicked up, and Roosh ended up cutting Paige off. We saw MJF was in the back. He was watching the match. And Roosh ended up sending Paige into the corner. And Paige ended up hitting a clothesline to Roosh, to which he followed up with a plancha. Hangman and Paige ended up rolling Roosh back into the ring. Roosh ended up trying to deliver a knee to Paige, but Paige delivered a Death Valley driver to Roosh. He ended up going for the cover. Roosh ended up kicking out at 2. So at the end of the match, Roosh was busted open. Roosh ended up sending up for the bullhorns to Paige, but Paige came back and delivered a clothesline to Roosh, and then the buckshot lariat, which the crowd erupted at. So Paige ended up going for the cover, and there you go. Paige ended up winning the match. Post-match, Pirate Party, Isaiah Cassidy, Mark Gwen, end up confronting Paige, and then Moxley made his way out. Moxley and Paige end up having a face-to-face stare down. Mox got on the mic, and he ended up saying, "I've waited for 3 years. 3 years of watching you, studying you. And I knew this was coming." He ended up saying, "Between the two of us, we've beaten everyone except each other." Moxley then wanted to say that on October 18th in Ohio, at the arena, I smoked and drank under the bridge. And there will be one last man standing in AEW. He ended up saying, "I'm going to show up and break your face, choke you until you turn blue." He ended up saying, "You're in the way of me being the one true top guy." He ended up saying, "I'm the best in the world. I respect you. I admire you as a person. But when that bell rings, I ain't got any goddamn respect for anything." So that was what Moxley said to Paige. Paige got on the mic, and he ended up saying that, "If you've been waiting, where the hell are you going?" So Moxley and Paige end up circling each other, Moxley ended up saying, "You're a sweet kid, but your pussy mouth gets you in trouble." And that got bleeped out on TV when he said your pussy mouth. So Moxley ended up saying, "This is your final warning. 13 days. Watch your damn mouth." So that was pretty much basically that. But very good match from Paige and Roosh. So I can't wait to see, Moxley and Paige go at it. And then we saw Tony Schiavone. Tony Schiavone was backstage with Willow Nightingale. So Willow Nightingale ended up saying that she wants to challenge Jade Cargill again for the TBS Championship at Battle of the Belts 4. So Jade Cargill, Kiera Hogan, and Layla Gray end up coming up. They were mocking Willow Nightingale. So Willow Nightingale ended up saying, "I'm going to be the 1 in 38-1. So Willow Nightingale getting another shot at Jade Cargill for the TBS Championship. Why? So once again, looks like Jade Cargill is going to retain the TBS Championship, and she's going to be 39-0. Willow Nightingale's not winning the TBS Championship. Why she wants to face Jade Cargill again for the TBS Championship, I don't know. And then we had Luchasaurus versus Fuego Del Sol, Jobber Del Sol. Do I really need to tell you all who won this match? So just think about who won the match. If you said Luchasaurus, correct. So post-match, Jungle Boy end up attacking Luchasaurus with a chair. Luchasaurus end up stumbling out of the ring. Christian Cage end up holding Luchasaurus back. Christian Cage had his arm in a sling. So Jungle Boy got on the mic. He ended up saying to Luchasaurus, "You were my best friend. And everything we've been through, you chose him, Christian Cage, and broke my heart." He ended up saying, "But now I'm going to break your fingers, your nose, your arm. You piece by miserable piece until I break you." So Jungle Boy was like to Luchasaurus, "Pick the time and place, and I'll be ready." Christian Cage then got on the mic. He ended up saying to Jungle Boy, "Oh, we could leave you in your own piss and blood." He said to Jungle Boy, "I told you not to come this week. We are in Washington, D.C., and being the only honest person in Washington, it will not be happening in front of these losers." So Christian Cage ended up saying, "The time is next week on Dynamite in my hometown of Toronto." So there you go. We're going to see Luchasaurus versus Jungle Boy next week on Dynamite in Toronto. Main event, Bryan Danielson and Daniel Garcia versus Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara. This was a good match here, but if I was Tony Khan, I would have called off this match because of the whole altercation between Guevara and Andrade. I think Tony Khan should have sent both guys home. But, if I was him, I would have made the match for Dynamite next week. I think that's what Tony Khan should have done. He should have called us this match and booked it for next week's Dynamite. But Jericho and Guevara, they ended up coming out first. And then Daniel Garcia came out, and then Bryan. And the match started off, it looked like we were going to start off with Sammy Guevara and Daniel Garcia. But Sammy Guevara ended up taking in Jericho. So Jericho delivered an arm drag to Daniel Garcia. So there was a chop battle between both Daniel Garcia and Jericho. Daniel Garcia ended up getting the upper hand. Sammy Guevara ended up tripping him from the outside. Sammy tagged in, started alone on Daniel Garcia. Sammy started taunting Bryan. Daniel Garcia ended up reversing a suplex, and he ended up taking out Sammy's knee. And Daniel Garcia tagged in Bryan. Bryan ended up taking out Jericho. He then went to work on Sammy Guevara. He started delivering some chops to Guevara. So Bryan then delivered a moonsault out of the corner, and he delivered a suicide dive onto Jericho. Bryan then elbowed Guevara, and then as Dynamite came back from the commercial, Bryan was up on the top rope. Jericho distracted Bryan, and Sammy Guevara ended up having Bryan up on top. And so Sammy Guevara delivered the smash fly to Bryan. So Guevara ended up going for the cover. Bryan ended up kicking out at 2. Guevara started punching away at Bryan. He tagged in Jericho. Guevara and Jericho both double teamed on Bryan. And they ended up posing. They did the El Idolo, both Guevara and Jericho. Pretty much Guevara just rubbed it in Andrade's face. So Guevara was just stirring the pot even more after the altercation that he had with Andrade backstage. So Jericho and Guevara, they did quick tags. Guevara and Bryan ended up colliding in the center of the ring. So Jericho and Daniel Garcia end up coming in. They were both tagged in, and they end up having a stare down. Daniel Garcia end up shoving Sammy Guevara away. So we had Jericho end up catching Daniel Garcia in the walls of Jericho, but Garcia ended up rolling through into the Dragon Slayer on Jericho. Guevara ended up delivering a super kick, and he delivered a Frosby flop to Bryan. Jericho ended up going for the cover, and Daniel Garcia ended up kicking out. Jericho delivered a chop to Daniel Garcia, and Daniel Garcia came back, delivered a few chops of his own to Jericho. So we had Jericho ended up performing the drop kick, and Daniel Garcia ended up countering Jericho. Sammy tagged in. Daniel Garcia ended up catching Guevara. He ended up going for the cutter. Daniel Garcia and Bryan ended up having Jericho and Guevara in, both a hammer and anvil elbows. So the crowd was loving what they were seeing in the ring. Bryan and Daniel Garcia ended up having Sammy up on top, and they delivered a double suplex. Sammy ended up flipping through, ended up hitting a smash fly to Bryan, which was cool. And then Guevara delivered a kick to Daniel Garcia. So he ended up going for the cover, and Daniel Garcia ended up kicking out. Guevara had Daniel Garcia lined up for the GTH. Daniel Garcia ended up blocking that, and he delivered a pile driver to Guevara. He ended up going for the cover, to which Jericho ended up pulling him out. Daniel Bryan ended up flying through with a knee to Jericho. So Guevara and Daniel Garcia were just exchanging kicks. So at the end of the match, we had Sammy Guevara. He delivered a high knee to Daniel Garcia and also the GTH. But Sammy didn't cover Daniel Garcia. He started taunting him. Sammy ended up going up to the top. He was going for the shooting star, but Daniel Garcia got the knees up on Guevara. So Daniel Garcia ended up locking in the Dragon Slayer to Guevara. Daniel Garcia had it locked in deep. Had the other Dragon Slayer locked in deep on Guevara. And Jericho ended up hitting Daniel Garcia with the Ring of Honor World Championship. The ref didn't see that. Aubrey Edwards didn't see that. So Sammy ended up going for the cover. And there you go. Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara ended up winning the match. Post-match, Jericho ended up staring at Daniel Garcia. And both Jericho and Sammy Guevara end up leaving the ring. And they celebrated with the Jericho Appreciation Society as Dynamite went off the air. But overall, this was a very good main event. But Sammy Guevara just covering Daniel Garcia, that just pretty much left a bad taste in everybody's mouth after what happened backstage with the altercation. There was actually a point in the match that I forgot to mention where Jericho ended up slamming Bryan into a table, and then Jericho suplexed Bryan through the table. But overall, Dynamite, very good show tonight. Very entertaining for its 3-year anniversary show, which, kind of gotten overshadowed because, like I said, of the whole altercation between Guevara and Andrade. Overall, very good show it was tonight. But anyways, that's it for the Dynamite review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe. And like I said, there will be no SmackDown, AEW Rampage, or Battle of the Belts 4 review on Friday because I'll be at New York Comic Con. So, just wanted to get that out. But anyways, I'll see you all later.